Hey guys, we just got back from an early screening of John Wick 3 Parabellum, which, I don't know, I guess maybe Lionsgate is extending the olive branch. I don't fucking know unless this gets claimed. I have no idea. Maybe it's just a PR company that extended it to us. So we got to see it early, and obviously these are our opinions of it. What did you guys think?
The action was fucking amazing.
Yeah. It was basically 2 hours of badass fights with no breaks. You remember how in that Game of Thrones, behind the scenes, they say, well, you know, we didn't want to do 2 hours of battle because that would be an incredibly boring thing, and we had to vary it up. This film is basically that. What they thought would be boring, and it isn't boring. It is non-stop action for 2 hours. Every fight better than the last. Well, I mean, if you order them. But basically, within the first 30 minutes, the fights in John Wick 3 eclipse the fights in John Wick 1 and 2. It's a natural progression, in my opinion. Now, they might not have the same impact, even though there was lots of ooze. Never mind. I want to take that back. It definitely has impact still. But I want to say one thing. I was under the impression that this was going to be the conclusion to the series.
See, I did too. But
Why?
I don't know.
No, I thought maybe I read something, or maybe I was like, you know, okay, you got the dog story, then it gets bigger, and then he's got to fight the biggest, and then we're done.
I thought that Keanu...
this is not the end.
You know, they said that as long as people enjoy their movies, I think they're going to continue to make them.
But see, I thought this was the end, because, like, 3, all right, that's a good stopping point. If you start getting to, like, 4 or 5, now you're just getting ridiculous.
What about Rocky?
Well, what I was thinking here is that this film maybe, like, the only way I'd accept a number 4 was if this film was split into 2 films, and that's what we're getting, and maybe we'll see a 4th. But basically what I'm saying is don't walk into this film expecting it to be the conclusion to the series that for some reason me and Joe thought would be, and Alex was over there having fun knowing that it's just another one.
I was having fun.
Another installment. So did that take away from your enjoyment of the film, Joe?
No, it did not.
It did not?
No.
Okay. And did it take away or add to your enjoyment of the film knowing that this wasn't going to be the end?
I didn't actually think about it like during when I was watching the movie. I mean, I did it maybe the last 5 minutes, just like, oh, what's going to happen? And they kind of teased towards that they could do more with John Wick. So.
John Wick, it basically opens up exactly how you hope it would. It opens up where he is excommunicado. They implement the excommunicado, and all hell breaks loose right away. You know, he's on the run. He's fighting one group, then he's fighting another group before he can catch his breath. Then he maybe catches his breath for half a second. Then he fights a third group and a fourth group, and it's like, holy shit, how is he going to keep this up?
The fight scenes, the choreography, and the way he uses the element around him is worth the ticket alone.
Oh, yeah.
Alone. I'd say the fight in the ancient weapons store or this weapons museum store is worth the price of admission.
Oh,
alone.
for sure. I think that the first act was incredible. I thought the second act was pretty damn good. The third act kind of let me down a little bit. I was getting to the point where there was some things that, and I am fully invested in the John Wick universe. Loved John Wick 1, 10 out of 10 for me, which I don't give a lot of 10s out. So John Wick 1 is a 10 out of 10.
Yeah.
John Wick 2 for me is like an 8 out of 10, still bought in. And this one like feels like it naturally follows through, but even for someone who's as bought into the universe as I am, towards the end of this film, I'm just like, all right, like this is a little beyond what I'm willing to buy.
Yeah.
So I think this one, I mean, if you liked any of the other ones, this is definitely one that you should go see.
Now, is this a film that you can go and see if you haven't seen the other
Not
ones?
at all.
No.
Wow, look at that reaction.
Well, so and it's not that it's not good, but I was explaining to I think you that the John Wick universe kind of feels like a hot tub. That's rising in temperature, right? Like, so if you get in at the beginning, you're comfortable, and then it goes up a notch, and then it goes up a notch, and it goes up a notch. If you jump in right now at John Wick 3 without having to go up there, you immediately just jump out and go, nope, that's too hot.
your suspension of disbelief will be stressed.
Yeah, plus you don't want to miss
but
out all the juicy lore that's
and you might think John's a little bit of a dick or a little bit too aggressive, but you have to go through the previous 2 movies to understand
at least the first one,
his state of mind. Yeah. And by now, to be perfectly honest, they are fucking superheroes.
Oh, yeah.
So if you were like, well, that's not a good way to put it. But they are superheroes. I don't know why I have to curse sometimes. All right, I'm sorry about that, guy. They're basically superheroes at this point. And if you like all the amazing fights of, the brawler style Captain America, if you're into a lot of the superhero fights, you're getting that non-stop for 2 hours straight, one fight after the other with barely any story in between. This is literally a story about John on the run, John fighting every fucking thing that they can throw at him, and then how does he resolve this situation that seems like an unwinnable situation with these, the Continental and the Assassins Guild or whatever they call it. They call, I guess, the table or whatever, that are sending assassins after him. And it is very gratifying. And like Alex said, first act is so good. It starts you right off. Second act, you get some more battles. You get Halle Berry's character that's introduced. Joe, what did you think about Halle Berry? Because me and Joe complained a little bit about Halle Berry in the trailer.
I thought I was going to hate Halle Berry.
That's what me and Joe thought
too.
What ends up happening?
Here's where I disagree with Alex. Second half for me kind of felt kind of pointless, but her and her fighting scenes were fucking amazing.
Yeah. So she convinced you she earned her
spot.
spot.
She is a badass.
She put in the work.
Her dog.
She did fucking put in the work. She looked like she trained just as much as Keanu Reeves. I love the new dog dynamic.
Oh, yeah.
I love how this film harkens back. I mean, these are people and choreographers and action set designers and things like that are at the height. I think this is the height. They remind me of when Jackie Chan was using a lot of his surroundings. You use a lot of creative surroundings here. There's a scene in particular where John goes to a horse. There's a bunch of horses in this sort of ranch. He manages.
Spoilers. We'll talk about it.
He manages to use his surroundings in interesting ways.
Amazing.
And man, there were so many times that the theater erupted in oohs and ahs. But by the third act, I think that's where it slows down a little bit. And I think maybe because a lot of us, at least I did, expected a conclusion. And while we do get to see sort of the height, okay. We get to obviously there's a lot of lore to the world that's remained hidden, and a lot of that lore is peeled away here, and you're actually starting to put faces with some of these shadowy figures that's been in the shadows. And for me, it sort of takes away from it a little bit when you look at the guy and you're like, man, that guy, what? He's that person in this. This should be a little bit more operatic. You know what I'm trying to say? A little bit more impressive. And so it's a small letdown in that, seeing some of the behind the scenes stuff and the inner workings of this shadowy organization. And then finally, the conclusion, which is not a conclusion at all, and it just feels like here we go. Yeah, we got to go another sequel bait. I was coming in fully expecting to have a finished story, and if that was the case, I would have given this a 10 out of 10. But because of the fact that we peeled away some of the layers of mystery, and we're actually putting faces with the mystery, and that has the potential to disappoint, combined with the ending, which is not really an ending, puts a hamper on an otherwise amazing film where the action is heightened, and it does ramp up what we've seen. John Wick 1, John Wick 2, John Wick 3 it's going in the right direction.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. I didn't have a problem with, I guess it was expectations, because I didn't expect this to be the final one, so I didn't have a problem in the third act thinking that they were going to wrap everything up. How are they going to wrap all these things up?
My expectation was screwed up because I was like, okay, we've got this many minutes left. What's going on here?
Yeah.
And that was making me feel like I was not satisfied.
It was some of the fight scenes towards the end that just got to the point where they were too much for they stretched my suspension of disbelief to beyond the breaking point, to the point where it's just like I don't buy it. Like if you are an assassin trying to kill the greatest, the boogeyman, you aren't gonna screw around. You're not gonna like bow to him in the middle of the fight. You're not gonna do all these things, these tropey kind of things that got thrown in at the end of the film. And I think that they would just jumped at the opportunity, but they did and they did it over and over and over again where they had opportunities, and I didn't like it.
You agree with that, Joe?
Yeah. Also, like the main bad guy. I don't know. Was he the main bad guy?
Chairman Kaga.
Who's Chairman Kaga? What are
He
you
was
talking about?
the guy. He was the nephew of the original Chairman Kaga from Iron Chef. And then
the
when they
sushi
did,
chef?
and then when they did to Iron Chef America, he was like his nephew or something, and he
The
karate
sushi
chopped.
chef in the
See,
film.
the reason
Yeah.
I knew him is like this guy looks so fucking familiar.
Yeah.
I remember him from the movie Double Dragon. He was like, fucking,
Oh,
he
yeah!
was Jimmy. I was like, holy shit, Jimmy, you've
He had
aged.
hair though. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, but
That's
he's a great
old
martial
school.
artist too, and you could obviously
He's a
tell
great
him,
martial
too.
artist. He's a great personality in this.
I liked him
didn't.
in-
I liked him too, but I didn't feel like he was an ultimate threat. I didn't feel that ultimate threat. I felt like they're trying to put him on the level
John's
of
just
John
a
Wick.
badass, man.
But nobody's on the level of John Wick. And that's why I disagree a little bit with Alex when he's talking about the tropiness and the assassins and you don't
I
buy what
get,
they're
like, a
doing.
hint of
I
it,
actually
though.
get what they're doing because they have so much respect for John. There are people in this film that are out to fucking murder John. They don't give a fuck. And then there are people out that are on a different echelon level that people respect them, they respect John, and then they fight, and then there are moments where they could kill each other, and they don't, and then they continue fighting, and so you have a little bit of a wait, why you could have just, but that is machismo.
There was
that is like,
five
look at this.
like straight fights in a row in the third act where they did that though, and that's the problem. That's the fatigue.
No.
There was two dudes. Well,
No, Joe's shaking his head
if
yes.
there's a couple of times, okay, sure. I'll
There's
just pass over
minimum
it, but-
five. I
Okay.
counted them in There were
All
minimum
right.
5 in a row where the bad guys can kill John Wick.
Yeah.
For $15 million, and they don't.
Right. All right, well, let's go to final verdicts then.
For me, I love the fighting. I love the acting. Then we got my boy Jimmy back from Double Dragon. But the second half, like, just felt kind of pointless to me. Like, the desert scene and all that could have just been, some of that could have been clipped out and just,
You felt it was a little too long?
yeah. It
was
2 hours,
220.
220.
Yeah, it was a long
It could have
movie.
been a little bit shorter. I'm going to have to give this probably like an 8. An 8 out of 10 for me.
Wow.
Yeah, because
That's real. That's good though. 8 out of 10 is a
we
great
gave,
movie.
We gave John Wick 2 a 10 out of 10.
You gave.
We
Not
both
me.
gave John Wick 2 a 10 out of 10, but that was from our days when we were excitable and we're trying to be more
Just be more-
critical.
We're no longer excitable.
Because honestly, there's some plots that I can't really say here, but
Okay, we'll
kind
talk
of were
about
like,
it in the
wait,
spoiler
why
section.
did he do this?
Okay.
That was a pointless scene.
8 out of 10 because some of your suspension of disbelief was stressed and the
Yes.
second half of the film was getting a little slow. Alex?
I'm also going to go with an 8. I think that the action, especially in the first two acts, were so good that it's worth the price of admission alone. The story, I actually liked almost all of the story start to finish. The problem I had with it was the believability in some of the fights. Some of the stop and go where, they're holding a knife to his neck and then they're not
and just throw
killing
him
him.
out.
And then it just, so that's why it loses a couple points. But I think just go for the first hour and a half and then you'll absolutely love this film. But it gets an extra point for me because I'm super biased and I love John Wick 1. I really liked John Wick 2 and I really like this one too.
So it goes to a
An
9.
8. To an 8.
But you said an extra point.
Well, it's probably
So it's a
set.
7?
It's
No
probably-
way! You guys
I
are crazy.
would say
I
no.
disagree with these guys
8.
immensely because I enjoyed the film a lot more than them. Now, I did give John Wick 1 a 10 out of 10. If I didn't review it in on our review show,
It's still a
a
10.
10 out of
It's
10.
still a 10.
John Wick 2 is a 10 out of 10, but I think maybe if I were to re-review it, it'd probably be something like a 9, but I'm going to stick with the 10 out of 10. This one here, though, is during that first act, act, you're like, this is on trajectory
Yes,
for a fucking
it got
10
me
out of
fucking
10.
11.
hyped.
It goes to
You're-
11.
because the fights are better than we've seen in the original and in the second one. There are some fights that take it to a great dimension, but then you're right, in the third act they start to recycle something. In fact, they almost recycle a thing that they used in John Wick 2, a certain set location, which is like, wait a minute, there's lots of glass,
Yep.
there's lots of deception here. They kind of recycle. It's like, did you forget you kind of already used this? And they have different characters. Now, while I like some of the characters in here, we even get an appearance from Braun from Game of Thrones shows up at some point, right? Is that who I say? He looked a little skinnier to me, but it looked like Braun from Game of Thrones. I liked his scene, and I like the action that results from his scene. So I think this is a 9 out of 10. And I have to sort of adjust my expectations because I don't want the fact that I thought it was the final chapter to completely ruin my rating. If so, then I would have probably rated it lower. But when I'm looking at it as a complete and satisfying, gratifying story, is it that? For the first act, for the second act, for me, it was the third act, and the conclusion drops a little bit. But still, overall, a fantastic film with action at the height of everybody's skill level. I mean, you can tell everybody puts in the work. Keanu, Halle Berry really earned her place.
The stunt people did a
The
crazy
stunt
job.
people did
the
a fantastic
dogs and dog
job.
trainers.
The
Jimmy.
dogs. We finally
Jimmy,
get
yeah.
to see
No
some
Billy.
action from a certain character who's been so stoic and you know, servicing everybody. He gets his moment to shine a little bit. So great film, one that we highly recommend that you
yes.
go out and
Go,
see.
yeah. See, if you haven't watched John Wick 1 or 2, buy your ticket for this one, then watch John Wick 1, then John Wick 2, and then immediately go into this one, and then
And you'll
hopefully,
be fine.
hopefully your heart doesn't explode because
Because this shit. I mean,
So much adrenaline.
Oh,
there
man.
might have been, and where Joe says maybe they could have took out the desert scene. I like the desert.
I
scene
like this
'cause
scene too. He's wrong.
I want to see the behind the scenes. We'll talk about that in
Yeah,
spoilers. But there was like maybe one fight somewhere that you can remove, whether it be the motorcycles
Nope.
or I know I like that too. I think it was probably one of the
Mirror scenes.
The mirror scenes. Yeah. All right. Anyways, so 9 out of 10. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you don't want any spoilers, and here we're about to talk spoilers. Thank you so much. We'll see you on the next Angry Joe Show. Bye, guys.